Hello everybody. In this video lecture, we will cover process of glycolysis. So this is a PowerPoint that I will use. Let's go ahead and begin. Always take time for me to find my pointer. So sorry for this delay. So living cell cannot store significant amount of free energy. Excess free energy would result in an increase of heat in the cell, which would denature enzymes and other proteins and destroy the cell. So cell must be able to store energy safely and release it for use only when it's needed. So all living cells need energy to do their biological processes, but they cannot have huge amount of energy stored without destroying itself. And that's why cells, they're using ATP. And ATP function as a rechargeable battery. So energy is stored within ATP and then it's released when it's needed. Actually, it really can be stored only for a short amount of time, but that's the way the cells store energy and then use it. Now, this is structure of ATP. ATP is made from ribose, sugar, nitrogenous base, adenine, and 3-phosphate group. And those lines represent chemical bonds. And within these chemical bonds, we have energy. Energy is stored, so it's a potential energy within ATP. Now, when this last phosphate group is removed from ATP molecule, ATP became ADP, adenosine diphosphate, and when chemical bond is broken, that energy is used for cellular processes, right? So let's take, for example, you. Now you eat food, and there is energy, chemical energy in your food, but you cannot directly use it. You need first to store that chemical energy of food inside your ATPs. And then when you need to move your muscles, now you're gonna use ATP to move your muscles, right? The analogy would be like a laundry mat. So if you wanna wash your laundry, you wanna wash your clothes, and you have $10 bill, you cannot use your $10 bill. You need to break it into coins and then use coins to run this washing machine. The same here, kind of. Okay, just make sure you understand it, just analogy. In your food, you have chemical energy, but to use this energy, first you need to synthesize ATP. That's what your cell's gonna do, and then use this ATP for cellular processes. So you can walk, you can talk, your kidneys will work, your liver will work, right? They require ATP that you will get. You're gonna synthesize it using energy inside your breakfast or dinner, right? Inside food. So before we start talking about glycolysis and energy transformation, because glycolysis is an energy transformation, we need to remember these two things. First, that cells, all cells, they break glucose. And the process of breaking glucose into smaller molecules called cellular respiration. So inside your cells, glucose is broken into carbon dioxide and water, and this is called cellular respiration. And this process releases energy. Some cells of photosynthetic organisms, they use photosynthesis to make glucose. Then light energy transformed into chemical energy. Sugar is synthesized, and this is called photosynthesis. And the second thing is that all living things require ATP to do cellular work. That's why we need these two processes. These two powerhouse processes, photosynthesis and cellular respiration, function in harmony to allow organisms to access life-sustaining energy. So here's photosynthesis and respiration, and that's a chemical reaction, right? So for photosynthesis, carbon dioxide combined with water energy of light is used, and when carbon dioxide and water combine, sugar is made, and byproduct is oxygen. Now this energy is light energy. Now this energy is stored inside sugar. Sugar is not made from energy. Sugar is made from carbon dioxide and water, and energy transformed from light to chemical, and energy is stored within chemical bonds of the sugar molecule. Now that's photosynthesis, and only some organisms can do it, like plants. Respiration for all living cells. Through respiration, glucose that was produced through photosynthesis now is oxidized. So oxygen is used to break those chemical bonds, and carbon dioxide and water is products, and energy in the form of ATP is synthesized as well, right? So you can see how we convert one form of energy into another form of energy. Another process of energy conversion is fermentation. Fermentation can be described as a part of cellular respiration or glycolysis, and this is where sugar is actually not broken all the way down to carbon dioxide and water, but instead sugar became over here, that's alcohol and carbon dioxide, but ATP is still made. So fermentation can be used for ATP synthesis, and respiration, cellular respiration is used for ATP synthesis. Photosynthesis is used for sugar synthesis. So here we're comparing photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Photosynthesis takes place in cells containing chlorophyll, respiration in all living cells. Photosynthesis requires light. Cellular respiration, no light required to occur. Photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and water are used to make food, glucose. In respiration, food or glucose is oxidized by atmospheric oxygen. In photosynthesis, energy is stored inside this sugar. In cellular respiration, energy is released. Photosynthesis takes place in chloroplast, cellular respiration in mitochondria. Plants, algae, and some bacteria perform photosynthesis, and all living things perform cellular respiration or fermentation. Some cannot go through the whole cellular respiration, so they only use part of it. And this part is glycolysis, the one that we're covering in this video lecture. So here we have light energy that enter ecosystem. Photosynthetic organism using chloroplast convert this energy into energy inside food through process photosynthesis. Also, oxygen is a byproduct of photosynthesis. And then look, all organisms, including this plant and animals, using this glucose molecule, using this organelle that is called mitochondria, when we have many, and sugar now oxidized into carbon dioxide and water, and ATP is synthesized, and ATP drives cellular work, and heat energy exit ecosystem. So we have energy flow through. Cellular respiration and breathing are closely related. No wonder we call it cellular respiration. What happens during respiration? When you breathe, oxygen goes in, carbon dioxide out, right? So now look, when oxygen you breathe goes inside your lungs, from lungs it goes to your blood, and then it's delivered to your cells, like muscle cells of this guy. Now inside these muscle cells, those cells will use this oxygen. So oxygen goes in, the same as breathing. Oxygen goes in, oxygen is used to oxidize glucose, and waste product or byproduct is carbon dioxide. carbon dioxide from your muscle cells move back to your lungs and you exhale it, right? So that's your breathing, and this is your cellular respiration. This is your respiration. This is cellular respiration. Cellular respiration requires a cell to exchange gases with its surroundings. Cell take in oxygen gas and cell release waste carbon dioxide gas. Breathing exchanges these same gases between the blood and outside air. So your respiration, oxygen in, carbon dioxide out. Cellular respiration, oxygen inside your cells, carbon dioxide out. That's why they are related, and that's why it's called cellular respiration. It's like your cells are breathing now. A common fuel molecule for cellular respiration is glucose. Cellular respiration can produce up to 32 ATP molecules for each glucose molecule consumed. The overall equation for what's happening to glucose during cellular respiration is glucose plus oxygen yields carbon dioxide, water, and release of energy. Or glucose, oxygen gives you carbon dioxide, water, and ATP. Now, cellular respiration is a very complex metabolic pathway, and it requires several stages, many steps, the whole bunch of different enzymes. But the major three stages of cellular respiration are glycolysis, citric acid cycle, and electron transport or electron transport chain. And in this video lecture, we're only covering glycolysis, and then I will record another lecture about citric acid cycle and electron transport. But let's look over here inside cells, animal cell and plant cells. They both are capable of cellular respiration. Both of them has mitochondria. This is where it happens. Now, when we look back in, now this blue stuff is cytoplasm. So that's blue stuff, cytoplasm. And now this brownish organelles, this is this, mitochondria. Remember, mitochondria has this inner membrane, cristae, right? It has matrix that's fluid, and it has the membrane. But glucose enters cytoplasm, and before moving inside the mitochondria, glycolysis happens. So glycolysis means lysis. Lysis means you break something apart. Lysis of glucose. So glucose is broken into two pyruvic acids in the cytoplasm, not inside mitochondria, and no oxygen is needed over here. Now, glycolysis is gonna make a little bit of ATP. See, that's a little one. That's where we make lots of ATP in electron transport chain. But in a glycolysis, we still make some amount of ATP. So now cell can hopefully survive. Not every single cell can survive on a glycolysis. Let's say your neurons cannot do it, but your muscles for a short period of time can do glycolysis only to get this amount of ATP and work for a short period of time, right? So that's glycolysis, first stage of cellular respiration. The first step in the breakdown of glucose to extract energy for cell metabolism is glycolysis. It takes place in the cytoplasm of most prokaryotic and all eukaryotic cells. Glycolysis begins with 6-carbon ring-shaped structure of a single glucose molecule and ends with 2 molecules of 3-carbon sugar called pyruvate. Sometimes they call it pyruvic acid. So pyruvate, pyruvic acid, that's the same. So here's 6-carbon molecule of glucose. Through glycolysis, it will be converted into 2 molecules. Each one has 3 carbons. So 3 and 3 give you 6, right? We need to remember about conservation of matter, right? So we cannot lose any atoms over here. We started with that many carbons, we need to end up with the same amount. And what's gonna be produced? ATP plus to the pyruvate. Glycolysis consists of two distinct phases. In the first part of the glycolysis pathway, energy is used, right? For any reaction, you need to invest energy first. Energy is used to make adjustment so the 6 carbon sugar molecule can be split evenly into 2 3 carbon pyruvate molecules. So if you look over here, this is glucose. Only carbon is shown just for our convenience. And that's our first stage. And this is investment stage. 2 ATP molecules are used to prepare this molecule for this split. In the second part of the glycolysis, 2 pyruvates are made. So 1, 2, 3 carbon, right? And this, look, 2 ADPs are made, and here's 2 ADPs are made. So total, we have 4 ATP molecules, but because we invested 2, our net gain is only 2. So total 2 ADP molecule per 1 glucose molecule. And actually, another chemical is synthesized. It's called NADH. That's NADH. And NADH is called primary electron acceptor. Now look, what do you need to do? You need to split this molecule into 2 smaller molecules. When this is done, actually what happened, you kind of knock out hydrogen. Hydrogen is made from proton and electron. So you actually, when you break this molecule apart, you have a lot of hydrogen, H plus, and electrons. They cannot just stay inside the cytoplasm. They need to be attached to some molecule. So electrons and hydrogen are attached to this NAD plus. And NAD plus, so it's already present inside the cytoplasm. So it accepts electron and hydrogen became NADH. That's why NAD plus is called primary electron acceptor. So here in the second part of glycolysis, ATP and NADH, or nicotine amine adenine dinucleotide, you don't need to remember this name, NADH, are produced. Glycolysis does not require oxygen and produces 2 ATP molecules for each glucose broken down to pyruvic acid. So again, we have glycolysis, 6 carbon compound, and here's our end product, pyruvate, that are 3 carbon compounds, 2 and 2 ADPs, right? But because we invested 2, total like 4 minus 2, so this is our net gain, only 2. And NADH plus H, those are molecules also produced. So here is fermentation. So let's go ahead again and see what we're talking about, so you guys are less confused. So we said that in cellular respiration, your cells gonna break this glucose in the presence of oxygen to make carbon dioxide, water, and lots of ATP. But the first step of cellular respiration is glycolysis, happens inside the cytoplasm and does not require oxygen. And then we make only 2 ATP molecules, right? Now, so can your cells just use glycolysis without going through this trouble of cellular respiration? Some of your cells actually can work. They can work for a short period of time without oxygen, like your muscle cells. They can do it. Then they only use this glycolysis part, and it's called fermentation. Fermentation is anaerobic, without oxygen, harvest of food energy. So look, you eat your food. You have glucose in your food. Now this glucose, now, your blood delivers this glucose to your cells. So here's cell membrane. So glucose goes inside the cytoplasm and it's actually split into two pyruvates, right? 3 carbon molecules. Now what's gonna happen with this pyruvate? Well, if this cell has enough oxygen, then this pyruvate will move inside mitochondrion and finish up cellular respiration. But if this cell does not have enough oxygen, then this pyruvate will be converted into either ethanol or lactic acid. In your muscles, it will be converted into lactic acid. Some fungi, like yeast, they convert this into ethanol, that is alcohol, without oxygen, and this is called fermentation. So after glucose is split into pyruvate, there is 2 ways to go. Without oxygen, fermentation, with oxygen, cellular respiration. Fermentation giving you only 2 ATPs per 1 glucose molecule. Cellular respiration give you 32 ATPs per 1 glucose molecule. So that's way better, right? But let's say your muscles, when you're running very fast for a very short period of time, they don't have enough time to go through this, long, complicated process. They very quickly make ATP by fermentation. There are 2 types of fermentation: lactic acid fermentation and alcoholic fermentation. They all start with the glucose, right? Glucose inside the cytoplasm. Then 2 pyruvates are made. Now what's gonna happen with this pyruvate? Now different. If it's alcohol fermentation, this pyruvate will be converted into ethanol. Ethanol and carbon dioxide, right? Here's the carbon dioxide. Oh, let me get my pointer. Right, so glucose will be converted into 2 pyruvate in both fermentation. Now, if this pyruvate converted into ethanol, that is alcohol, it will be alcoholic fermentation. If this pyruvate is converted into lactic acid, then it will be lactic acid fermentation. But in both cases, 2 ATPs are produced. So that's the energy. That's the whole point why your cells are doing it, or any cells doing it. So your muscles produce lactic acid during intensive exercise. It's a metabolic byproduct that makes no contribution to exercise performance. It causes muscle fatigue and post-exercise muscle soreness. So when you exercise very intensively and next day all your muscles sore, that's because your muscles are, so busy. They do not have time to go through the whole process of cellular respiration. They just do this short fermentation. Glucose into pyruvate, pyruvate into lactic acid. No oxygen is needed, very quick process. Very little ATP is produced, but enough for a short period of time. That's why your muscle fatigue very quickly, and then you have soreness. Right, so that's a lactic acid fermentation inside your muscle cells. Some microbes using fermentation, lactic acid fermentation, microbes that make cheese, sour cream, yogurt, soy sauce, pickles, olives, sausage meat product. So this, to make all this food, people use microbes that perform lactic acid fermentation. So, and because of this lactic acid, right, that's a sour product. It's all sour products here. Now, by the way, I forgot to tell you that this lactic acid then, can be used further, after you're done with exercises, your muscle's gonna break it, get more ATP, and it will be removed from your muscle cells. Now, yeast is a microscopic fungus that uses a different type of fermentation, and it does not produce lactic acid. It actually makes alcohol and carbon dioxide. So that's alcoholic fermentation, and it's used to produce beer, wine, and bread. So here's again, start with the glucose, glycolysis, glucose became pyruvate. Now this pyruvate, either it became lactic acid, and then you can get soy sauce, cheese, and yogurt, and sour cream, or it can be ethanol and carbon dioxide, right? And you can have beer, wine, and bread. So you can see how important this glycolysis is, right? Without glycolysis, we would never have beer or wine or bread or cheese, right? So this was the last slide. We cover glycolysis. That is the first step in cellular respiration. For some organisms, it's the only step. And these two ATP molecules are enough for them to carry on all their functions. In next video lecture, we will talk about the rest of cellular respiration. Thank you for watching, and I hope it was helpful.